Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. And we have another Nick Viall clip here. He was on Jason Nash's podcast, and he talks about wanting to push Kaitlyn Bristowe into the pool. Hey, I don't blame him here. We all have crazy thoughts, right? He was proposing, for God's sake, and she was standing him up. Push her into the pool. You know, sink or swim, Kaitlyn, sink or swim. So anyway, I'm going to play some of that. He said, "You have no heart. I asked you not to do this to me." So dramatic. I love it. But then he actually has a moment in this clip where he realizes that Kaitlyn was actually giving him a gift of a positive edit by crushing his heart, which you don't get in real life. In real life, you can't F someone over, you cut someone off in traffic, they're like, "Hey, what's the big deal, buddy? I'm just giving you this nice gift, so you get a good edit." It's like, "Oh, take this and go edit yourself." All right, anyway, follow me on Instagram at DNeals. I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Neal, so I'm going to be sharing this with you. But guys, I have some stuff to tell you. I have some wild content that I've posted on the Patreon today. Tasha and I are getting married. We leave in less than a week for Mexico, and Tasha's wedding dress has not arrived yet. But listen to this. I secured some video footage that will share with you guys the process of getting the wedding dress last minute. Will it come in from overseas? I share all of that on the Patreon if you want to check that out. Patreon.com/Dave Neal. Now, let's listen to Nick and Jason Nash discuss The Bachelor. Of course, you'll hear the poor audio. It feels like they recorded this in a bank vault.
You know, the producers asking you questions like, "You feeling confident? Feel good? You know, you're feeling really good."
Wait, tell me what the producers say. I love this.
They just ask you questions.
Like what?
Yeah. Well, like they're just asking how confident you are.
How confident you are.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, at that time, I was like, "Hey, anything can happen, man. Fuck." You know, I've learned that lesson. Like you're talking to a guy who was in the same position last year. Like, I'm not going to fall for this shit.
Isn't that the best, your relationship with like the camera?
By the way, if for any men out there that have corporate jobs, if you can make it on your own on YouTube, this is what you dress like, Jason Nash, right? This is what you dress like. He's, I don't know, what is he, late 40s, 50? He's like, all right, whatever. I can wear Hawaiian shirts and gym shorts all day.
Ran on TV shows.
Yeah.
It's the absolute best.
Yeah.
Like, let's get this shit done, and they're micing you up.
No offense to corporate media or corporate world. If you like wearing ties to work, perfectly fine.
I enjoyed them, and I respect that they have a job to do too. But I really put most of my trust in her.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need to trust you guys. You have a job to do. So fuck you guys.
Right.
You're great. Love you guys. But like, not my job to trust you. It's
Also kind of like, don't trust your bosses, right? They're not your friends.
my job to trust her. She brought me out there. She let me go through that whole speech. And then I got done. And then she, brought out the dagger, so to speak.
All right, so Nick's going to share the dagger that he received from Kaitlyn Bristowe on his season. Now, you might remember, Nick was already villain non grata. Is that a term? This is a quick clip from Nick on Andy Dorfman's season, where he also made it to the finals. So he was on several back-to-back seasons, or maybe not back-to-back, but very close.
Special.
If you weren't in love with me, I'm just not sure why you made love with me. I don't.
So
then people were like, "Yo, if you weren't in love with me, why did you make love with me?" And of course, too good of a line to have been off the cuff. By the way, people have been asking about these pole vaults that they've been using for microphones. These are the Rode Reporter omnidirectional dynamic microphone, and they're just too long. I don't know what kind of science they have going in there, but it's not doing. It's just I wouldn't be cut dead with one of these microphones. They just look stupid. It's like, did Barb Barker? Is it like what,
Give a speech in the end there where you're like,
Yeah, well,
I
they
love
want-
you. I says, why?
Yeah, they're like, well,
Like holding.
I remember being like, well, I'm gonna make her talk first, and they're like, sure, and she just stands there. I'm like, well, fuck it, I guess I'll go.
Right.
And she did, and ended it. But again, it's one of those things too. I remember being so mad at her, and I was very angry at her at the time, because all I could think about at the time was like, how, like, you have no heart. Like, I asked you not to do this to me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need you to bring me.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't a part of your show. I was very angry. And I remember.
Now, at this point, he hasn't said who he's talking about.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, either way. But at the time, that was my thought, right?
Yeah.
And I remember just wanting to push her in the pool. We were standing right next
All
to
right, so he says he wanted to push her in the pool, and that, of course, gives it away that it's one Kaitlyn Bristowe. And by the way, I mean, how epic. Because when a lady doesn't want her hair wet, oh my gosh, the worst thing you can. It's one thing if she's like, I have my iPhone on me. No. if you get somebody's hair wet or their makeup done, God forbid they're not wearing waterproof mascara. They're going to come out looking like a sad raccoon. You know what I mean? You don't need that, Nick. But I got to tell you what, that would have been like if Nick pushed her in the pool. Anyway, but that would that be considered assault? I don't know. I guess it depends if she, what if she falls and hits her head? I mean, it really, really quickly spirals out of control. But as far as Kaitlyn falling into the pool, poetic justice has been served last month. Kaitlyn Bristowe falls into pool.
Daniel Diamond.
No. Now, of course, we're going to watch this knowing that this pool fall was 100% staged for David's bridal, which luckily I might not have to go to if the wedding dress arrives.
Your first batch. So we want you to cut the cake. You got it. I think you have the knife.
Oh, breaks an ankle. Pretty good acting. But then people go, well, the cake was floating. I don't know. I don't know if we have any cake enthusiasts. Would the cake be floating if this was done? If this was a real cake, it would probably be dense and sink right to the bottom, unless maybe it's some sort of fluffy cream. I don't really know. Either way, as we know, most bridal shoots use fake cakes because they don't need them to melt, So the question is, maybe the other people didn't know it was staged, but clearly she did. Clearly this was a staged event here. Either way, some people are asking, maybe she didn't fall into the pool. Maybe Nick pushed her. Maybe this was payback. Years later, Nick Viall pushes, psychologically, like voodoo doll style, pushes Kaitlyn Bristowe into the pool. Okay, anyway, back to the show.
And I was like, don't push her in the pool.
Yo, this is great behind the scenes shit. This is crazy.
But yeah, I was just so mad. But like, here's the thing though. Had she not done that to me, I wouldn't be sitting with you here today.
Yeah, right.
She gave me an opportunity to have one of my best moments, right? Because on that show, often people don't realize, and I didn't realize at this time, and the advice I'll give people on the show is if you feel right, you're fucked. If you feel embarrassed, you're usually in pretty good shape. Wow. Because
which goes to show that people want, we build things up so we can break them. We build sandcastles so that we can run through them. And this is what we see. And this isn't right, but this is the psychology that exists with fame, right? We like to build up somebody and then find some scandal that knocks them down. Of course, this is probably what ended Susie and Clayton's relationship, as we discussed yesterday. The fact that social media and the Redditors and all the commenters and the DMs was too much. The people on TikTok accusing Klayton of banging his girlfriend and all these random accusations and just the different vile forms of nature amongst the audience really can drive a wedge in between people. But what Nick mentions here is very interesting, that it isn't until why is that humanity, that until we see someone crying, until we see someone broken, that we can't truly empathize with them.
They want to see vulnerability, they want to see feelings, they want to empathize with you, they want to relate to your heartbreak. That's what makes you likable on that show.
Did you say you're an expert now doing it so many times
on the show? Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I mean, look, as far as time in the game goes, you're looking at one of the most, maybe minutes on air. Maybe he is the king. If minutes on air is what makes somebody, up the sort of Bachelor hierarchy. I don't know. Leave a comment. Has anyone? Oh, this would be fantastic for Bachelor data. I'm not going to do this work. I've got too much to worry about wedding dress wise. I can't. Can you imagine Touch like, hey, did you find out where the wedding dress is? Oh no, sorry. I was counting down how many minutes Nick was on a Bachelor Winter Games or whatever. But I think he is technically the eldest statesman.
Sadly, I don't know. I don't wear that with a badge of honor, but
I think what you said is really, really important. I can relate.
Look at the cords down here. Like, what's going on?
It to myself. I had a podcast with David. It was called Views.
Yeah.
And it was doing great. And he didn't want to do it anymore.
I think he means David Dobrik.
And I had to go do this, and it's been great. It's been like, you know, I've gone and done something on my own.
Yeah,
You know,
and so
it was hard.
you just never really know. Yeah,
you just don't know.
The idea that a misdirection is a redirection, is that the saying? Yeah. So of course, from getting fired, he has to start his own podcast, and something better comes out. And as Nick has mentioned, with a lot of the times when he's talking about other contestants, and sometimes they'll be upset with the way he's talking, including Katie Thurston. He says, look, hey, isn't it nice that people are having all these discussions about you? Like, Nick knows that his house is bought and paid for in part because of an audience that talks about him. He keeps himself in that discussion, which if I'm Nick, I would love what I'm doing here, me, Dave, Power Recapper, right? Because it's what a pleasure it is to continue to have the conversation going years after.
Yeah,
It's a really important lesson that
yeah.
so hard to learn.
Sometimes
So basically, you're welcome.
feel about a certain situation, you know, it's like a breakup, right? You break up, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
how could you do this to me? Time goes by, you realize it's like, hey, no disrespect, but thank God I'm not in that relationship, you know? Like, but it's hard to realize that at the time, you know?
I mean, we all know bullets that have been dodged. Oh my gosh. The people I have cried over, and in hindsight, I'm like, oh boy. You know, don't you wish you could just phone a friend? I'd love to phone young Dave. Hey, young Dave, just walk away. You know, I know we're all out there. We'd all like that.
You care about them, or you're just afraid of being alone or being single. Like, oh, I don't want to date again. Like, how embarrassing is it to get back on the apps? You'll have all these thoughts that really have nothing to do with whether you should be together or not.
Yeah.
You know, in some cultures, it's actually considered like highly offensive to show the sole of your shoe. Anyway, not here. So we'll have some more content from this, but very interesting hearing Nick talk about the dynamics of his relationship with Kaitlyn Bristowe. I think it's fair. I think everything he said here is completely fair. He shared why he wanted to push her into the pool. He felt like he asked her not to do what she ended up doing, but in hindsight, her embarrassing him like that on national TV, it does make him look good, and it probably is, you know, one of the reasons why he ended up becoming the Bachelor after that. All right, let me know what you think. I'll be on Patreon if you want to check out my behind-the-scenes wedding dancing and my behind-the-scenes. I'll leave you a little outro here. If you want to see my behind-the-scenes wedding dancing and my behind-the-scenes search for the wedding dress that is yet to come, that's all on Patreon. You can go check it out right now. Today's video, $5 a month if you want to check that out. This is the month to do it. We will be releasing the full live stream of the wedding ceremony and all that for the Patreon exclusively behind the scenes. All right, folks, we'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.